Now it's my distinct privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Linda Bowdler. Linda is mother, grandmother, mama Nana, devoted wife, school teacher, godly woman. In May 2007, she and her two grandsons watched her daughter Lisa be murdered at the hands of Lisa's husband and the father of her boys. For the last 10 years, Mrs. Bowdler and her family have struggled with the reality of living without their beloved daughter and knowing that the murderer has never been found. Mrs. Bowdler and her family have surrounded Lisa's children with love and support as they continue to cope with the traumatic effects of the boys' nightmare of witnessing the murder of their mother and losing their father all at the same time. Supporting her grandsons while simultaneously dealing with her own trauma as she lives a parent's worst nightmare has strengthened Mrs. Bowdler's faith and her sense of family. Today, Linda's going to share with us her story of healing and inspire us, all of us, to cherish those we love, because life is precious and we never know how long we have on this earth. Miss Linda?
Thank you, Tracy. The goal of this is not to cry, and that almost made me cry. Thank you so much for that introduction, and I enjoyed listening to Adrienne play too. In 2007, over Christmas break, our family was traveling back home from Florida from vacation, and we were cruising right along, having just passed through the city of Nashville, when suddenly overhead a warning sign flashed. Interstate 65 North closed. I mean, could it really be that the whole North Interstate was closed? I mean, surely construction wouldn't close a whole section of the interstate, especially on Christmas vacation. Another warning sign, Interstate 65 North closed. And then another one, and all the traffic stopped. We were stuck. Yes, we found out that earlier that day, a tractor trailer full of explosives had overturned and all of the interstate was closed. You know, life with its daily activities can easily occupy us so that sometimes warning signs of an impending problem can be easily overlooked. And suddenly you may find yourself in a personal gridlock where you know it will be a very long time before you will ever exit. My story today, I want to say, in no way minimizes your story. You see, I know, because I've heard a lot of stories over the last 11 years, and we each have a story. Divorce papers, fatal accidents, cancer, the death of a much-awaited birth, the death of a spouse we've loved for many years. But the result is the same, you see, it's personal pain. So before I tell you my story, I want you to know that your story is equally as important. After 6 years of marriage and a miscarriage, our story began when Lisa, our firstborn, was born on May 5th, 1975, on her Uncle Gary's birthday. Now that was very important to our family because my husband had one sibling, and it was Gary, and he was a medic in the Vietnam War, and he was shot down in his chopper. So that was special that she was born actually on his birthday. Now we realized right away we had a unique little girl, but then of course that's what all parents say, don't they? And she walked at 10 months. We had her climbing trees at 2, and she memorized the 23rd Psalm and said it at church at age 3. Maybe she also loved music. And that was her heart thing, was music. And maybe it was all those Scottish lullabies from Grandma Bowdler. But she had a wonderful ear to hear pitch and could play almost any song on the piano if she could just hear it, which was a discouragement to her teachers all the way through college. Our last musical memory of her was the Christmas before she passed away, and all our family was together, and she was playing Christmas songs at the piano, and we were singing along with her. She loved being a big sister, and of course she let her sisters Janine and Sherry know she was the big sister. She enjoyed spending time with her families in Canada, Maryland, and New York. And her favorite aunt, we all knew, was my sister Jeannie. Lisa adored pets. She had Ruffles the parakeet, Elijah the guinea pig, Inky the gerbil, Ebony the rabbit, Subi and Sweet Pea the ducks, and Kasha Minnie the poodle. She was an excellent student, having attended Worthington Grace Brethren Church in Ohio, Lowell Baptist, and Warsaw Christian schools. Later, she graduated from Warsaw Community High School, where she participated in track, select chorale, and academic bowls. Locally, she attended Pleasant View Bible Church and Community Bible Church, earning her Juana Timothy Trophy. She went on to go to college, where she graduated with honors, majoring in social work. She developed a love for other cultures, and during her lifetime, she went to Mexico, Guatemala, Costa Rica, and also spent a semester in Brazil doing mission work with Goshen College. She had a very sensitive heart. She was very interpersonal, and she loved the elderly and individuals with special needs. The way she performed her duties while social work at Healthy Families, Lakeland Rehabilitation, and Cardinal Center showed that she treasured being the voice, the advocate for those individuals. She was not embarrassed to be seen with them, to touch them, to minister to them, especially those who were less fortunate socially, financially, or mentally. During her senior year at Goshen College, she was introduced at a party to a local resident, Omar Mora. Omar was a newly arrived illegal in America living with his brother in Goshen. He couldn't speak English, and he couldn't drive a car. Now Lisa, who always wanted a social cause, found one in Omar, and she poured herself into helping him accomplish these things. In fact, the day of her death, papers finalizing his American citizenship were found on her bed. Eventually, this relationship turned romantic, and they were married. Prior to her death, they had just purchased a new home, and Lisa loved her children, especially since she had miscarried twice before giving birth to her oldest son, Jovan. She had a special song she would write for each one of her boys, and would sing it to them whenever they were afraid. So at her death, we wrote a song, and it's on Adrian's board in the back there, in memory of her. After years of being a faithful, loving wife and mother, she confided in my sister, her aunt, that she was struggling with her husband's unfaithfulness and abusiveness, and it was taking a toll on her. She did not share these things with her family. Later, she told me when things were getting quite bad that she did not want us to think poorly of him. About this time, she had a conversation with a leader in her Bible study, and she went and talked about the struggles she was having. And after this conversation, she chose on her own to confront her husband to share all the things that were in her heart and all the things that she was dealing with and her plans to possibly leave the marriage. But her intention was to save the marriage. So Omar did go with her to some counseling sessions, but at the same time, we learned later from police records that he was seeing other women, practicing the very next day after the conversation at a gun range, and became possessive and then controlling of Lisa. In fact, that month of May became very turbulent for our family, as Omar became unpredictable in his behavior. He would sit outside her place at work at night, because she worked at the Cardinal homes and would work in the evenings, not allowing her to be alone with family members without his presence, and physically abusing her in front of his 7-year-old and 2-year-old. Warning signs were beginning to pop up. About 2 weeks before her death, I was visiting Lisa in the home trying to find out how she was doing, and Omar burst in from work and was very irrational towards myself and Lisa. I remember as we sat there trying to reason with him, Lisa said this comment: "Am I going to be another statistic? Will I be a wife killed by my husband?" Just like that warning sign, Interstate 65 closed. This was like, to me, what? I mean, surely not. I mean, is it gone that far that he would take your life? This cannot be. Well, because it became more irrational, Lisa and the boys came to our house that night and stayed for a few days. But Omar, full of promises, talked her into coming home. We urged her at that point not to go, that it was against all of her training, but she said she felt safe. Omar continued to keep Lisa isolated from us, and I became more desperate as her sisters to check on her. So on Wednesday, May 23rd, after work, I had said, well, tonight our church is starting a children's Bible club. So I can come home and by your house and pick up Jovan. And she said yes. I thought at least I'd get to see her at the door. It was a good excuse to see my daughter. When I arrived, Lisa was in a total frantic, stating that Amar had just arrived earlier. He'd stormed into the house, accusing her of all sorts of things. She showed me where he'd broken all the phones and cell phones, and that he'd taken all the car keys. Lisa said, I've called Dad, and he's on his way, and I told her we needed to go right away. And while we were gathering the boys together in the interior hallway that led to the back bedrooms, there were gunshots fired through the door from the garage into that hallway, and the door was busted open by Omar, and it separated myself from Lisa. He continued to fire bullets that missed Adrian, who was toddling around at the end of the hallway, bullets that went into the wall next to where Javon was watching TV in his little brother's bedroom. Lisa stopped at the end of the hallway in order to avoid coming nearer to the boys. She had already taken 2 bullets we found later. I remember this as clear as it was today, that she knelt down at the end of the hall and said, in a very controlled voice, Amar, please do not kill me, please do not take my life. But at that time, he put the gun on her head and fired. In the rapid-fire bullets, she had received 3 shots. He turned and looked then toward me, and I fled as he was blocking my way to the boys. After it was over, and the neighbor had come in and taken the boys from the house, Javon said to me, Nana, I wanted to kiss Mommy, but his face was so full of blood, so I just kissed her legs goodbye. He said, I think Adrian's hurt because he has so much blood on him, but he wasn't. The weeks after the death seems very surreal to me. You feel more like an observer than a participant. At that time, a friend had given me a book entitled When I Laid My Isaac Down by Carol Kent. And she penned these words that I thought, this is really mirroring what I am feeling right now. It stated, I must have done something wrong as a parent. This wouldn't have happened. I could have prevented this terrible thing from happening if I had not been so busy with my life. I should have fixed this problem. I'm a fixer. I should have fixed it before it got out of control. Oh, this is too big for me. I cannot walk this road. I don't know how to live through this. And you know what? You can't. Not on your own. But with our faith in the Lord, the support of our churches, our neighbors, and friends we continue, and we do so now today. At the start of the tragedy, there is usually a great outpouring from people. I mean, it's kind of like seeing somebody off on a trip. There's flowers and monetary gifts and presents and cards and things for the boy and endless phone calls. And a lot of people trying to do and say things that they don't actually know what to say. And then the community coming together to finish our basement for the boys who came to live with us. But just like when we had to get off that interstate, off into the side roads that were jammed for miles, everyone with cars, the twists and turns of life ahead are ones that you carry on your own, along with the Lord in our life. Seemingly endless tears, sleeplessness, embarrassment, people who actually say they're afraid of you because you're not normal, because you have had somebody murdered in your family, remarks that you're open to on the internet, people calling you that you don't even know and telling you their opinion, people sharing all of their stories with you of horror, and years of therapeutic counseling. And also, on top of it, we had just built our home and planned on my husband's father to come live with us. So at 92 years old, Pop, who lived for another 5 years, came to live with us. During those days, I would joke and say, you know, if I write a book, it's going to be called Living Between Diapers and Depends. Because I had Adrian, who was still trying to get potty trained, and my father-in-law. But caring for an aging father-in-law, working part-time, raising 2 traumatized boys with all the counseling sessions, and carrying on my ministries, the stress finally took a toll, and I developed a severe PTSD as well as anxiety disorder. The result was a lot of physical side effects, and I had to quit my job and struggle to function through each day. We also felt as a family that our daughter's death and the public circumstance surrounding it has stripped our family naked before the public. You have interviews with news reporters and TV reporters, 911 calls that are shared on the media, even 5 or 10 years after the death, phone calls from strangers, everyone trying to tell you things. American Most Wanted desiring a story, but we declined. Our family was just struggling through this long healing process, and all of these things were difficult to work through. Jill Briscoe, in a book, one of my favorite little books called God's Front Door, wrote this: "It is very easy to waste pain that comes into your life. Personal pain can and will drown you. So you will need to bear your pain publicly, and you will need to bear it well for all sorts of reasons. You see, people will be watching you, and you will have a chance to share God's help for you. And this will encourage them to trust Him. So don't waste the pain." And the Lord led our family to use our pain to connect to others. About this time, our daughter Janine had made for me a little book called God's Words for Comfort and Encouragement. Verses in here as Isaiah 42. "A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth judgment. I am the Lord your God, who takes you by your right hand and says, 'Do not be afraid, I will help you.'" Or from David in the Psalms, "But you, O God, see the trouble of the afflicted. You consider their grief and take it to hand. The victims commit themselves to you, and you are the helper of the fatherless." We reproduced that book, my church, many copies, and distributed it to many different people as I met them along the way, who've also gone through a difficult tragedy. Dr. Seuss, many of you probably know the story of the Lorax. And the Lorax is a character in that story that says, "I am the voice for the trufula trees." You see, the trufula trees, which were beautiful, were being cut down by the Onceler, and in his business and all the activity of making money, did not realize how the trufula trees were being destroyed. And the Lorax says, "I am their voice." And you know, there is a need for a voice to speak for the invisible victims of domestic violence. John McCarthy and Angela Alsobrook in February 2013 wrote a paper entitled "The Invisible Victims of Domestic Violence." In their article, they stated that there are two types of victims: the person who suffers the physical consequence of the violence, and children who witness it. The children often suffer long-lasting emotional and psychological damage, and the Beaman home is very aware of this issue. I remember a few years ago reading an article in the front page of the Times-Union giving statistics stating the often dim future of children of abusive families. It so upset me that I wanted to protect my voice from becoming statistics. It is an extremely difficult road, though, to journey. It has only been through the many prayers and the help of so many people and organizations that our family's faith in God and Word has seen us through these struggles. Let me give you a quick example of the children as victims. And I kept journals, and the boys kept journals. So here are two things just from their journals. I could give you many. May 16, 2011. Javon is age 10, 3 years after the murder. Javon shared with me today that last night he had a dream. His dad was coming back to murder him, and it would be on May 29th. On that day, can I please sleep in your bed? July 31st, 2012. Adrian, age 7, 5 years after the murder. I put him to bed that night, but he said he was feeling very lonely in spite of such a good day. He said, "Nana, I am different. I am different from kids in my class. I have no mom or no dad. All my friends have a mom. I want a mom. I want a mom of my own I can feel, hold, and snuggle with. I just want my own mom." Dr. Woolley, the counselor of the boys at times, said, "You see, as children age, they will need to constantly reprocess their life situation from a new perspective as they get older." I remember at first Javon was terrified of his dad. He had a friend going to Chicago to see the Cubs, and he said, "Nana, you have to tell him not to go. He's going to be killed," because that's when my dad's truck was found. Then later, "Dad is going to hurt me." Then later, "I'm going to put his picture out. You know, I don't think he's so bad after all. You know, Nana, can I still love my dad?" And then now, as an 18-year-old, how in the world could my dad have done this to me? For English class one year, Lisa had to do a diorama of the Greek myth Pandora's box. Now in that story, Pandora was given a box, and she was told by Zeus never to open it. But of course, as a woman, she was very curious And she opened the box. And out of the box came all of the evils and miseries of the world. So she just slammed that box shut. But then she heard a tiny little voice crying to let her out. And when she opened it and released it, it was the voice of hope. And Pandora released hope into the world. The last of the characters escaped from the box. The theme of this banquet has been called Angels of Hope. And the only sure hope that I know is found in the Bible, and it is in the person of the Lord Jesus Christ, who is referred to in the Old Testament as the angel of the Lord. But just even as Tracy shared today, the Lord works through individuals to bring comfort and care to those in need. And this is the goal of the Beaman home, to be the advocate for those people and to minister to those people that have suffered an abuse. As of today, Omar is a fugitive of the law. Police believe him to be in Mexico. When his truck was found in Chicago, he'd taken the pictures of the boys out of his wallet and left it on the car seat, thus closing that chapter of his life. William Carey, a British missionary to India who set the pattern for modern mission, said, "When I die, I don't want anyone to talk about William Carey, but I want you to talk about William Carey's God." And I'm sure if Lisa was here today, she would say, "Don't talk about my death, but about Christ and whatever glory that can come to him, and that will be accomplished through my death." I want to thank you for the privilege of coming and being able to share my story with you, and I'm always willing to listen to your story.
I have struggled to write this presentation for the last several weeks. And it's even harder after hearing her. The more I got to know the Bowdler family, the more I realized how amazing their story of loss, love, faith, and the never-ending journey of healing after losing someone is. Not only have they had to grieve the loss of their beloved Lisa, but their journey has been overshadowed by the relentless cloud of knowing she is gone because she married a man with a violent temper. Lisa's family will never again be the same, and her children lost both of their parents that day and continue to struggle with the lifelong impacts of childhood trauma. Her mother's personal grief and trauma were cloaked by the responsibility of taking care of two young orphan boys, and her family's entire world tilted that day to revolve around the boys so that they would grow up in a loving Christian home, just as their mother had. And here we are nearly 11 years later, and each one of them still struggles to overcome the trauma they experienced that day. I am truly honored and humbled that you are willing to stand up here today, Linda, and to speak on behalf of the victims throughout the community. Thank you.